Ukraine's southern ports woke up to more carnage on Thursday morning. Russian missiles hit Odessa and MYKOLAIV overnight. It was the third successive night of airstrikes on the region. Officials said at least 21 people were wounded in the latest attacks. Russia has stepped up strikes on the Black Sea ports after withdrawing Monday from a deal to allow Ukrainian grain exports. On Thursday it turned up tensions again, saying any ships heading to Ukraine's ports could be considered targets. That might scupper Kyiv's plan to resume exports via Romanian waters. It's all reviving fears over global food supplies and prices, with grain stocks and port infrastructure also destroyed in the latest attacks. On Thursday, EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell said it would all create a huge food crisis in the world. He said European countries would have to help find new routes for Ukraine's grain shipments.
If the sea route is closed, we will have to increase the capacity of exporting Ukrainian grain through our ports, which means a bigger effort for the neighbor Ukraine. They will have to contribute more, opening the borders and facilitating transport.
Ukraine described the latest attacks as Russian terror and said they were meant to disrupt global food supplies. There was no comment from Moscow. Speaking a day earlier, Russian President Vladimir Putin had said he wasn't against reviving the grain export deal. But he said its collapse was down to Western countries not fulfilling promises over Russian exports. On Thursday, the strains were starting to show on global markets. Prices for wheat climbed again on fears over long-term disruption to supplies.
The US and Russia are dangerously close to an armed conflict. This year, 2023, New Delhi will be the capital of global diplomacy. For a country as diverse as ours, with 88% of the population illiterate, it was a very big deal to write a constitution, and that too, the world's largest. Meanwhile, if we may, here's a Republic Day gift from India for the BBC. A list of suggestions for the BBC for their upcoming documentaries. Number 1, the Kohinoor and the colonial loot. Number 2, an outdated monarchy and unhealthy obsession with the royals. Number 3, racism in 2023. We're waiting. Email exchanges from inside the BBC, they talk about the risk of violating Indian laws. It's easier to rake up the freedom of speech debate, but does it give anyone a free pass to knowingly violate the law? America supports India because it needs India's support in return. And India is working with the US because it suits India's interests. This is how geopolitics works. Last night, he diffused a crisis with his defense minister. But today, Netanyahu was confronted with a new problem. His cabinet seems to have rebelled against him. The UK is looking at the Indian subcontinent to fill its coffers. That India seems to be negotiating from a position of power, like a partner and not a former colony.